Right, welcome along folks. This is the webcast 2013, but on the 2014 version of Infraworks. My name's Dean Peterson, for those who haven't met me before, and I'm one of the senior A2K civil techs. So, Infraworks, being the 2014 release of what was last year in the previous called Infrastructure Modeler, has a few extras built into it, but is essentially very similar to what Infrastructure Modeler was doing. Same process, same niche. However, there are a lot of webcasts out there on Infraworks, most of which you'll find on YouTube and similar places. They largely concentrate on a model that's already been built and what you can do with a built-up model, but I wanted to look at this in this webcast at the process of setting up a model from scratch, which is what people potentially will want to be doing, and seems to be not too much information out there on that process, so we'll spend the next hour looking at that. It's going to be very similar to the webcast I did last year for Infrastructure Modeler 2013. So for those who have seen that webcast, we're not going to be doing a heck of a lot that's new, except for a couple of new tools as they've been applied to the 2014 version. So if you did see that previous webcast, I'll leave it up to you whether you want to sit down and watch this one on this fine Friday, or perhaps you want to just get the recording and have a scan through it later on. I'll leave that up to you. However, we want to go and have a look at this demo. Let's go and do it. So, Infrastructure Modeler, when you start it up, Infraworks as it's now called, when you start it up, there are a few getting started videos. They're all quite short, but you can have a look at those too for specific things you might want to do. However, we're going to go and start up a blank slate, if you like. Where you would do that is click the New button up here and simply give it a name. I'm going to call mine Webcast. That's all you need to do. You click OK and it sets up in the background a SQL-like database, which is how this whole thing works. That will take a couple of minutes. I've actually shortcutted that process, and I've got one here, so I'll just open that up. There is this one from San Francisco City, which is quite nice. If you have an Autodesk 360 account, you can sign in down here to the online models, and that's one of the online models. If you want to open up a model, log into Autodesk 360 with your account. If you don't have an account, go and make one, and you can go and bring that onto your machine and have a play with it. Very nice model, and that's in many of the demonstration pieces. So when you start up Infrastructure Modeler, it basically doesn't have, Infraworks, I keep calling it that, but never mind. It basically has nothing in it, and we need to put some information in it. So I've just gone into Plan View here. We, first of all, need to go and bring up some palettes that we can use to model with. So the first one here is click on the data sources. It's got a ribbon system, as for most AutoCAD products these days. So into our blank model, we can start introducing data. Now the whole idea of this is to be able to quickly sketch in some preliminary concepts of the project that you might be working with. And so you may have very, very little data at the beginning of a project. More often than not, you'll have access to perhaps some council GIS data or something like that, and that's what you would have to start with. So that's what it builds its models out of. So from the data sources panel here, we can add various types of data. The first thing we normally need to do is bring through some sort of ground surface. In our case, we've got a land XML ground surface. And typically you're either bringing it through that way or perhaps a GeoTIFF as a ground surface. So let me just navigate to where I have my data set here. dataset folder. Now this dataset I'm using is actually an American one, but the model itself will be in metric. So, begging your pardon, wrong folder there. I want the surface folder. Here's our XML of a surface. So it connects to the data source, and it's in that concept. It's very similar to Map3D if you've used Map3D. But once it's done that, we go and right-click on the entry it's made in the panel here, and we need to configure it. We need to configure all the data sources that come in. It needs some sort of configuration. This it knows it's going to be a terrain, which is the ground surface. We just need to give it the coordinate system. In this case, it's a Californian coordinate system. That's all we need to do. We can go close and refresh. I don't think there's anything else we need in there. That should be fine. And it will refresh the model and put in our ground surface, which is our starting point, which is here. By the way, this is going to be quite a graphics intense webcast, so depending on your web connection it may be lagging a little bit, but I'll try and keep an eye on that and slow down where necessary. It looks like it's broadcasting reasonably well from here. Alright, so there's our ground surface. We want to do some things with it now. The first thing you might want to do is put an aerial photograph on it. So we actually have some in here. Let's go and add them in. So they are raster images. So there's a bunch of raster images you can apply. In this case we have some TIFF files, tiled. So I'm going to shift select all of those and go open. And again, once they come in, once it's finished adding the data source, we need to right click on it and configure it. Again, coordinate system is CAI, and it's going to be ground imagery is the type of object it is that we're bringing in. Close and refresh. And when it's doing this refreshing, it's actually takes a few moments usually. It's actually writing that information or the links to that information into the SQL database in the background. And you'll see as we move things around, they don't happen instantly. This database has to be updated every time we do something in here. So it does take a few moments usually to do various operations. Though I have noticed the 2014 version is about twice as fast as the previous version, so they have been working on this speed to make improvements there. So these are actually well, they're not black and white, but they're blue and white photographs. They're not colour, but a colour photograph would work just the same. So you can see it's pasted and draped pasted those in and draped them on the terrain to make it work, which is great, at the elevation that the terrain's at. So the next step is to bring in some other data. Now it's really set up to work with shapefiles, because very often that's all you're going to have at the beginning of a project. So from the drop down here I'm going to bring in first of the shapefiles. Let's go to my shapefiles folder. And I've got some in here called wetlands. So some waterways and things in there. Open that one up. And this will be the first of the data sources which will have information attached to it. So being a shapefile, it has geometry and also has information attached to it that we can use. So in this case, when it's a shapefile, many things we brought in via shapefile, so we need to tell it what this is, and it's going to be a water area. And these tables change depending on what type of object it is that you're inserting. So in this case, let's make the name. These are the attributes from the shapefile. Let's relate well, let's put the number of acres in. Well, actually, no. Let's try area. We've got area in here. No, we've got acres. Okay, we'll use acres. And we shall. We can put anything else in this field here. Say the attribute field, if it has one, perhaps. You can put any fields in there, and you can use them later on. We're actually going to use one of these to make tooltips, I think we will do. But first of all, we want to tell it how to show this in the model. So what we want to do is click on the little button here and say we want this to be default water, I think would be the one we want, default water area. And that's about all we're going to need to do in there, but let's put a tooltip on here as well. When you hover over them, we're going to get a tooltip. So we can write in here, I think I want it in here, area as text. Then we want to grab the value we put in as the name. Oh, is it not coming through there? Let's try the HTML format. That's better. The HTML tab is what I was looking for. And we want to select the property we put in as the name on the first tab. And it was an acres, wasn't it? As a piece of text. So that's going to put a tooltip on it, and we'll hopefully see how that works once we get it in. So let's go close and refresh. And it will bring in those water areas. Hopefully. No, it won't. I've got my didn't set my coordinate system, so it's gone in the wrong place. So that's easy to fix. You just right-click on it and reconfigure it. Geolocation is set to the wrong coordinate system, so make it CAI, close and refresh. Better. Okay, so now we're getting our water areas coming in from the shapefile, and they're being configured up to look like water, which is, they've made the water kind of dynamic and nice in this version. Also, if you hover over that, we should get our tooltip that we asked for, or that I asked for. So it's got the text area and acres, and it's got the number from the shapefile, which is the property, one of the attributes of the shapefile, one of the bits of object data. So that's good. That's a good start. What we can do now is bring in some more land areas or bits of shapefiles. Let's do some of that, which will actually be the land use. So let's go and bring in one of those. Another SHP file. If you've got SDF files, you can use those too, but more often than not, it's a shapefile. And you can connect direct to data sources if you have your own data sources, your own database that you want to connect to. More often than not, you're going to be using shapefiles, I suspect. So let's go and have a look at the land use shapefile. Is it in here? There it is. And again, it's going to need to be configured once it's been added. So right click on there, go configure. What's it going to make? In this case, it's going to make coverage areas. And you'll see what they are in a moment. I'll set the geolocation correctly this time so we don't make that mistake again. We could make more tooltips for these if we wanted to, but as we've seen that, I'm just going to pass over that for the moment. But we will need to set a style, a way to display them when they come in. So let's go for, click the pencil here, grassy area, grass with gravel for all of them, and then we'll change things later on. We could also, of course, bring in other components from that shapefile, such as the feature ID for the name, perhaps. Description could be the layer, may be the description from the shapefile. Depends what's in the shapefile. All right, let's run with that and see what we get. All right, so these are our large parcels or bits of land use area. What we might do is, I don't like these black lines around the outside here. So I'm going to change the style that happens to be using. So there's a thing called a style palette up here in the ribbon, which brings up this little toolbar or tool palette. And if we go to the coverage area, which is what these are, here's the grass with gravel style that's been applied. I can go and edit that, and we get an outline width here. I'm going to see, let's see if we can make it 0, which is the black line around the outside. So we'll accept that. Let's got rid of that black line. Did accept that, so that's nice. Okay, and as you can see, it's being draped on the surface as well for those various land use areas. But what I might want to do is actually use, as well as the style palette, there's these style rules you can set up. And we're going to be using, well, you want to be using those fairly extensively. So I'm going to make some style rules here. So I clicked on the style rules up in the ribbon to bring up this little dialog box panel. And we're going to make a new style rule in here. In fact, let's go back to the palettes for the moment. We've got one called sand in here. Let's make one for gravel. So I'm going to make a copy of the sand. So I can select it there. Down the bottom here, go make a copy. Oh, sorry, make a local copy. There we go. Again, it'll take a second to do that, to write it into the database. Here's my sand copy. I can rename it gravel. And then I can pick that and go and edit that particular style. So I'm making a new style here. So at the moment, there's the gravel. It's got it's currently sand as a type of coverage. We can go and pick some other types of pre-made images that we can use to make this ground look more realistic. Let's go gravel medium grey or gravel mixed. Let's try gravel mixed. Gives you a bit of a preview of what it's going to look like. Yep, that'll be okay, I think. So let's apply that, and perhaps the outline width as well. I can put a 0 and go OK. Again, it'll just take a minute to do that. Okay, that's our new style done. So what we can then do is go and make our style rule based using these different ones that we've made. Maybe I'll make another one just, yeah, well, let's make another one as well. Let's make one for some cobblestones, shall we say. So I'll just copy my gravel, make a local copy. and I'm going to take that and call it cobbles or paving, if you like, and I'm going to use a paving type for that one. There's my cobbles, edit it, and change the coverage to these white cobblestone should do. And so now we can start using those to apply to our land coverages. So the way I'm going to do that is make a new style rule. So click on the style rules, hit the plus here, call it pavement, go OK, and then we can go and make an expression for that one. And the expression, well, we're going to use will be where there is where the name is equals commercial. So let's go and edit that. So where a property being the name, did I use the name? We'll find out in a moment. No, it's the description I used. Where the description equals, and that was I set in when I configured this description, I hopefully, if I got it right, was I set as the layer name. I click Get Values over here for the description and click that again. Oh, maybe I didn't set that up that way. Okay, I'll cancel out of here for a second. Cancel out of there. Let me check what I did with this land use. The description should have been layer. It's feature ID. Okay, that should be correct. Let me just try that one again. Maybe I'll try the ID. So where the name, let's try name again. Okay, description then. Oh, I see. I've made this style rule in barriers instead of in the correct place, which should be land coverage. Let me remove that out of there. We're talking about coverage areas. That's a good trick. So let's remember that one. Let's call land use. Actually, this will be commercial. So what we should have when we see this is we say the name equals, and the values this time for the name, there we go. So that's the ID, so we don't really want the name, we want the description. I think we're fine. Let's back out of there. So where the description equals, and this is the values coming from the shapefile. There we go. So this is the values from the shapefile, where the description that we set when we configured the land use was actually the layer, if I remember correctly. Yes, it was. So the layer name is commercial from the shapefile. And go OK. So where the description equals commercial, we're going to put a particular style on it. And the style we're going to use is our gravel, I think we should say. And go OK. and go OK and refresh it. And by setting that up, any of the land parcels in here that were cited as being commercial in the shapefile will be styled in a particular way, and that way is it'll have the gravel applied to it. So these are my two commercial ones here. I know I've also got one here called hospital. We can make another rule for the hospital, or we can just go directly from the style palette and say, okay, the hospital I'd like to have styled as cobbles. So in the style palette, you left click on cobbles and say apply that to that one there. Okay, and so straight away if I go down and have a look at that, there's my cobblestones being applied to that land area. Similarly, if I go over to my gravelly area, there's all my gravel. Alright, so that's a good start. We've got some land areas in there. We've got all these spaces in between there for roads in the shapefiles. Or even if there's not spaces, you can still do the same thing. We can bring in another shapefile for the roads. So let's go and do that. It's just looking for center lines, which is all you'd normally have in a shapefile. So we're looking for the new roads, SHP. There is roads, new roads. Again, you've got to go and configure it, so let's go and configure it. Right click on it, configure. That shapefile is going to be roads. Again, you can bring in data from the shapefile to use, so descriptions and names to use in those expressions that we were just playing with a moment ago. We could have the name as the name and the status as, or the type. Let's go type as a description. Again, we can make a tooltip and all that sort of stuff. Geolocation we need to set. And we also need on this first common tab to give it a rule to use, a default road rule. So let's go into there and say all the roads are going to be, what would be good? Sidewalk and green space, let's try that. We go OK. And we're going to bring that into our drawing. Or into our model. Just thinking about it there at the moment. Where is it? Okay, if it's not, we hit the update button up here, refresh data source. It'll refresh the whole model for us. There we go, that's better. So this is where we're starting to get more 3D design, more 3D modeling going on. If we go and have a look at one of these things, we can see it's actually a little road going on there, gone in there with actual 3D curbs and grass and pavement and all that sort of stuff going on. However, there are some of these roads that are major roads. So we can put a style rule for those too. So let's go and have another look at the style rules. Let's go for a style rule there. And we change this time to the correct tab, which is for, scroll down the bottom here, roads. So the roads, I'm going to make a style rule in there, and I know some of these roads are called boulevards. Well, I spelled that wrong, but I'm sure you're going to live with that, typo. And the expression in here is where the description, which we set in the configuration screen, equals. You can see what the values are going to be for the descriptions. Boulevard, and go OK. Oops, Need to double click on that to add that in and go OK. And where any boulevards exist, we can style them up in a different way from the default. So we can go add a style, and what should we use here? Let's use what do we got here? Boulevard. Here's some boulevards with fall trees, with palms, with summer hardwood. Let's try that one. Okay, that looks pretty. Used that one before. Go OK, and let's refresh the model once we've done that. Something hasn't happened there. Where is it? Nope, hasn't done it yet. Let's see why. Oh, if we go refresh here. Okay, now it's applying the star rules. Use that refresh button down the bottom there. Better. So now we've got these nice boulevards, or the main roads, if you like, with a particular street style. Now you can make your own street styles here. This particular one has these trees, and the detail on the trees is fantastic. If we can get in close to one of these. There we go. There you go, you should be seeing that now. Again, it's because this thing's built on a gaming model that you can actually move and pan around so quick in this thing. And you can have such detailed models and allows you to move around. I'm probably moving a little bit fast for the internet connection here, so I'll go a little bit slower. So you can see quite quickly, with the introduction of a few shapefiles and a few rules, we're setting this up, setting up our model quite quickly. Alright, so what else can we do? Oh, you can see how these are highlighting every time I move my cursor over that, over one of these land coverage areas. That can be a little bit annoying when you're trying to pan around the screen, so I'm going to just stop that from happening. The way we can do that is you bring up this button from Model Explorer over in the ribbon, which brings another panel over here on the left, and we can simply find our coverage areas and use this little padlock here. You left click on it, and in a moment it will lock those, so they're not going to be selectable anymore. You can then go and unpadlock them when you do want to select them. It'll just take a second to do that. Okay, maybe a few seconds to do that. There we go, it's done it. So now when I left click, I don't accidentally select any of those things. They don't highlight when I move my cursor over them, but the roads and other things do. But those, I'm left clicking at the moment on that, it zooms me into it, which is a nice little bit of grass there. But the actual area doesn't highlight. You can do that with any components of the model. Alright, so we've got some roads and some areas being rendered up. Let's go and bring in some buildings. So again, probably you would hopefully have access when you wanting to use this to another GIS data, bit of GIS data. Often the house or building footprints are available. So that's what I'm going to use here. There's some building footprints or outlines. There's one here called New Buildings. We'll open that up as a data source. and we can bring it in. We can also bring in 3D models, individual ones, or I'll bring in one of those later on. But here's my new buildings. We need to right click on it and configure it. This data type will be related to the buildings. We're going to have different things we can fill out there. The name, I'm not sure if they have names in here. It's got an ID, so maybe the ID or type would be its name. Probably ID, I guess. You'd know better if you knew the shapefile. And for the description, let's put the type. But what we can do, we had a number of floors in there, so we can, for the roof height, we can automate the height of the building that it's going to construct. It's going to construct the 3D models from these 2D footprints. So we can say, we'll take the number of floors, which is one of the properties of the shapefile, and multiply it by 4 meters. So it's going to take the number of floors, multiply it by 4 meters, and that's going to be the height of the building. We'll come back and play with the roof slope, I think. So let's leave that for the moment as 0. And but we need to give it a style. So let's go for a style to use. Well, actually, let's not. Let's leave it as the base color. It's going to put, if we don't change that, we'll put some random face colors on there with pastel shades, and roof materials the same. So let's leave that as it is and just bring it straight in. The geolocation is going to be set as well. Tell it what coordinate system this is in. And again, you can put tooltips if you wanted to. Let's run with that and see if we get something close to what we're looking for. So without setting any, or going into any detail, just bring in the setting a roof height basically, we're getting a model that looks like that already. Okay. So it's just putting pastel shades on the roofs and the walls, so you get a general city layout. So this is all coming just from a shapefile. There's no 3D data there. This is generating its own 3D data based on the heights we told it for the roof height. Okay, maybe we want to configure that a little bit more. So let's go back into the new buildings here and configure it again. I can put a roof material on there, shall we say, from the style chooser. Here's some roofing materials, and I'm going to go for a green metal ribbed look. And we've also got another component over here for roof slope, and I'm going to put in a little calculation in there, I think. Let's take, I've played with this before, and I happen to know that 300,000 divided by what is coming out of the shapefile as the area. In fact, let's look at get values here for the area just to make sure I've got the right one. Yeah, 300,000 divided by those numbers will actually give us a reasonable roof slope to play with. I'll show you why I'm doing this once we get it done. So we go OK, and close and refresh. So what's going to happen is that when you have a very large area, you're going to get a very flat roof slope, like these buildings at the back here, which is kind of what you might get in an industrial type building. Where you have a smaller area, you're getting much steeper roof slopes. So it's a way of automatically generating some roof slopes if you don't have any figures for that in the shapefile, which is useful, and it does a reasonable job. And if I zoom in on one of these, you can see it's got that rib material on it. Now what I can also do is go to my buildings here and make another one of these style rules for those. So let's go to the Buildings tab. I think that's at the top here somewhere. Yep, Buildings, and make another style rule. Enter a name for this new style rule. New Buildings. Okay. And the new buildings, we're going to make an expression, or actually we don't need an expression for this one. We'll do it a slightly different way. I'm going to take all of the all of the buildings that have come in, and we can just add styles directly to those. So we can add multiple styles if we want. So I've got some I've played with already here. So let's go and, because they look quite reasonable, so let's go and have a go. Let's go for concrete and glass type. We'll add in Antipholus. We'll add another one, some brick ones. So let's go for facade brick. We've got Paulus, I think it's a good one. We've got Diner. And there's another one called Cobra, which is actually reasonable to get a bit of a mix. Where are we? That one. And what you can do once you've chosen several different facades that you'd like on these buildings, you can assign a probability to each one. So I can say if they're all 1, they're going to have even probability of occurring, or I can say that, well, maybe I want to increase the probability of, or maybe I'll decrease that one, make that 0.5, so it's half as likely to occur as any of the other ones. And you can play around with those to get different probabilities depending on how you want your building styled up. So we go OK and hit the refresh button down here at bottom right. And it will go around and apply those style rules with those pre-made facades. Now, these are pre-made facades, as I say. It is possible to go and take photos of a building and put your own faces on these things if you want. But at the moment I don't have any of those, so I'm going to just leave it like that. Now it's actually got quite a few of these ones in here. I don't like those particularly much, so I'm going to decrease the probability of those ones. So I'm going to go back into my expression. That one there, the Cobra, don't like that terribly much, so 0.25. And refresh it and reapply those. There we go. That's looking better. Old look town, or older look town, so that's good. And what I might do now is, this is the hospital in here. It's a proposed new hospital. So what we can do is actually just go straight to the style palette for, find the style palette for, where are we? Facades. Go and find the one for concrete and glass, which is here. And I'm going to grab the one called, here we go, Joshua. And again, like the ground coverages, you can left click and hold on that, drag it off and say on that building please. And there we go. And off you go and can continue on along that path and bring in as many buildings as you want. Bring in some more shape files, maybe for footprints of the residential houses, and just make those very quickly. One-story buildings, etc. Fill them in as background to the model. So, other things you might want in your model, vehicles and bits and pieces we'll throw in a moment. However, let's go and have a quick look at putting in your own road. So let's say this is the proposal we're looking at. We've finished constructing our surrounds to go with it. We might say, okay, maybe we want a little piece of road in there. So there's an Create Edit button over here on the left, which brings up a panel at the top, and I can go make some roads. I'm going to create a little local design road in here, I think. And to get these roads to connect, you simply click on the center line, drag out the line of where you want that road to run. I'm going to run it somewhere around there and back to here. Right click in draw, and as you can see when I deselected, that's not the one I wanted. Let me just do that one again. So I'm just selecting it, and deleting it. There we go, that's better. Everything disappeared for a second there. Let's try a different one. Design road collector maybe. Right click in draw. There we go. And it simply creates the intersection, so it hasn't snapped there properly. Let me try and snap that properly. It's a bit of a shame. What it will do, let me just sketch that again. What it will do is actually create these intersections correctly for you when you snap it correctly. So let me just try that again. Create a collector. Goes from there to there, to there and back to there. Better. That's what it's supposed to be doing. It actually joins them when you actually get the center lines connected properly, like I didn't have to begin with. Will make your little intersections for you, which is what you want. Okay, we can then add things like, let's look at a bunch of trees in here. Create trees as a forest. Now better check what sort of trees we've actually got to begin with. Let's have, what would be good? Well, there's all sorts of trees in here. Let's run with oval hedge maybe, or no, let's go for some sort of trees like this. Yeah, let's try that one. And simply sketch the area in which you want those trees to occur. Something like that. Once they get in there, it gives you a bit of a preview. There's a slider. You can increase or decrease the density of the trees. It's a little too far, so I'll go back up to here. It's not bad. You can change the scale of them if you want. Increase or decrease their scale. That might not be too bad for me. And if you want to fill in some additional trees in there, you can go and just simply put another bunch over the top. So we can go trees of the bush variety, small hedge maybe. Sketch another area in which you want them to occur, which can go over the top of another area if you want. Increase or decrease the density of them. Increase, decrease the height or the scale of them if you want. I've actually got two groups here, but that will be fine. I do have two different groups there. That's okay, we'll get a bit of a more varied terrain that way. Okay, so we've got some trees in there now. So what we might want to do is also put in some street furniture. So there's some city furniture stuff here. Select the style, it's going to be city furniture. We might have, say, what do we got? Parking meters, bunch of parking meters maybe, or rubbish cans around out the front of the. Well, let's do parking meters out the front of the hospital. So I'm going to put some parking meters that run from there to there to there to there and over to there. So let's put those at a specified distance along there, and maybe some vehicles as well. So let's go grab a vehicle. So you can see pretty quickly you're going to be building up your model based on these pre-made bits and pieces, but you can also bring in your own models too, which I'm going to do in just a second. So let's change this to vehicles, and we actually have an ambulance there, so let's grab that one. Pop an ambulance here over by the curb. When you pick one of these, you can give it a rotate and a move. Oops. Rotate. Actually, we better get it driving on the correct side of the road, hadn't we? And it's right up close to the curb, so that's fine. We can move it using the little move grip over there, the gizmo. Cool. Alright, we're getting close. So it doesn't take too long to style up something that will give you a visual cue of what this hospital is going to look like, and change facades and things like that when you're sitting down with the client. So the idea is to construct these models before you even started any design, any work, and sit down and have a conceptual review with the client or interested parties, perhaps it might be public consultation, those sorts of things. It's a relatively quick way to build up a 3D model that you can have those sorts of discussions with people. I'm just bringing in a 3D model here. This one is a DAE file, come from SketchUp, I think. Yes, it'll be SketchUp. So let's go bring in one of those. Just find the folder that I've got one in there. Platform Overbridge DAE, I think is the one. So here's my Overbridge model come in. So Revit models can be brought in too if you've got one of those, but SketchUp's great for a resource for different sorts of models, or if you actually make your own buildings and things in SketchUp, bring them straight in. This one will be a 3D model. Let's call it a building type, and it doesn't have anywhere to place it currently. So there's a tab here that gives you a preview of what that model is. So yep, that's the one I wanted. Geolocation, it's got an interactive placing button down here, so I'm going to click on that, pop it in there, and close and refresh. Once we get the model in, we can fine-tune where it's been placed. So I just wanted an overbridge in there to go across that little road. We can pick our model, we can give it a bit of a rotate, and a bit of a move if you want as well, into place, and place it. So that's pretty good, and we can use that as part of our model. So you can see pretty quickly we're building up a reasonably detailed model that gives people a reasonable idea of what's going on, especially if you've got real houses, real building footprints out there that you can relate. Obviously the roads will be in their real positions, and you can relate that to people's everyday experience quite easily with a 3D model as opposed to a 2D plan. So just finally to finish off, I guess, is you can do video presentations in here. So let me show you how that's done. You'll see also that in the demos and things for Infraworks. There is the ability now in these roads, these new roads that are created, if you have the ultimate version of Infraworks, from the ultimate version of the infrastructure design suite, you can export road centre lines and profiles out to Civil 3D. So once you've finished playing around in here, you can take it to the first stage of the design process and get profiles of the roads and the 3D geometry of the road into Civil 3D as a starting point for where you can start your designs once you finish playing around in here and moving things around with stakeholders. But just to give you quickly before we finish up an idea of how to do the videos, because that has changed from what it was previously. So let me just do that for you here. Close that pane there. Right, so I can close this pane too actually now. Give us some more screen real estate. So on the Present tab over here in the ribbon, you've now got this thing called Storyboards. So I can click on Storyboards. Oh, by the way, this thing, every time it saves out to the SQL-like database, you don't have to do a manual save. Everything is saved as you construct it. So there's no need to hit a save button to make sure you've got your model. It's saved as you construct it. So let's go and start one of these storyboards. So what it basically does is specify a few keyframes. So I can specify, say, a keyframe here, which is the position of where my eye is currently. If we come to the drop down here, we can go add camera path animation, and I'll put the first keyframe in there for a camera path animation. And you can see it down here. We can also, if we want, put a caption in at this point. And it puts a caption in there, and we can say new hospital. This is new in the 2014 version, didn't get this previously. And we can change its position. And its style and so on and so forth. I think that's probably, where are we? Centered at the moment. We'll try that. So we can see that here as that caption there. I'll then change my position, or actually we can test that. You can hit the play button. Oh no, it's up the top of the screen, but that's fine, that'll do. So it's going to have new hospital, and it's going to last for 3 seconds. So that's good. Let's go to another position over here. So zoomed out over here somewhere. That's a bit of a reference of where this hospital is going to go, and make that as our next keyframe. So I come down to this keyframe here, click on it, and hit the plus next to it. It'll make a new keyframe of where my screen currently is, and that's it there. So now I've hit the play button. It's going to start here, and it's going to scroll off over to that second keyframe. Hopefully that's not too fast for your screens. And let's go, and I realise I'm probably just on an hour's webcast now. Let's just do the last bit, last sort of 5 minutes, we'll finish it off. There's a new little component in here on these videos, which is to make a camera path from a design road. If you've made a design road, which is what I made that one in front of the hospital as. So you click create from design road. It says select one, which is going to be this one. And it's made a series of keyframes out of that design road, which is a new feature. So what's going to happen is I'd like to have one more keyframe. So I'm going to pick on that first frame of the video. I've put an extra one there, didn't mean to do that. So delete that keyframe. Okay. If I pick on the first one, it should take me to it. Oh no, go to location with the right click, it takes me to it. There we go. Okay, that's the one I wanted. I'm going to make that a keyframe in here. So if I click on that keyframe and go plus next to it, it'll take us to the beginning of the road. So we'll get a nice transition between the two. Alright, let's try playing it now. We can scroll through it if we want, or I can hit the play button. Take the new hospital out to the second keyframe, down to the third keyframe, which is the front of the road, and then drive us along that road. Now I don't know how well that will have gone through the video, so let me just slow everything down and we will have another go. So there, I want duration of make that 10. Or 11 seconds will do. Next keyframe. Keep speed, that's fine. This keyframe. Keep speed. This one we can set our speed as 7 meters per second maybe. Okay, let's try that. Hit the play button. That's not bad. Let's go back to the beginning and play the whole thing. New hospital text comes up, scrolls around to that position, comes back down. And plays through. Hopefully your videos are going reasonably okay. But if it's not, just grab the recorded session of this this webcast and you'll get a much better representation, not playing through the web. Cool. All right, so that's essentially what I wanted to cover, how to build up a model. Obviously we haven't put a lot of detail into this yet, but already we're getting fairly good 3D representations of what the new scheme may look like in relation to the surrounding area. Cool, just looking to see if there's any questions being asked here, but I don't see too many that haven't been answered already, so that's fine. So that's a quick introduction, hopefully enough to get you started in using it for yourself, and then you can start delving into the finer details of how it works. That's the end of my demo for today. Thank you for joining me. We'll see you in a wee while for perhaps the next one of these webcasts that's going on. But in the meantime, thanks for joining us. Have a nice day and have a great weekend. See you then.